All righty. Happy Football Friday, everyone. Good to have Mark back finally. It's been a bit,
It's been a while.
but you finally get to experience the fantastic StreamYard studio that we have now, which is great. Um, got a bunch to talk about. USFL Week 9 this weekend. It's heating up, like I put in our our discussion or our posts for the show today. Playoff races are crazy in both divisions. Top two in each make it. So we'll see how that shakes out. We'll talk about those four games after some news stuff to go through, and then we'll hop into the longest portion of the show every day now is our season previews. NFC West today, and that's your division. So let's start off with one USFL thing. The Generals seemingly have released quarterback Kyle Lauletta, no longer listed on their roster. DeAndre Johnson activated finally, so he should be back under center, I believe, this week, and which is good for my Generals pick. So, yeah, Kyle Lauletta, not a great season. 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Did not play very well with the Generals. College football, I absolutely hate the Big Ten schedule that they did.
I was going to ask you about that. Tell me how you feel.
They announced their schedule system for 24 and 25 when USC and UCLA come over. They're calling it the Flex Protect Plus system. So what that is schools get up to 3 protected rivalries. And that's the thing that pissed me off. How does Penn State have 0 protected rivalries?
So I saw the headline, right? And I actually before I read into the article, if that makes sense, I thought it was the headline. I was like intrigued to it, right? I was like, oh man, the SEC should adopt what all I'm saying is going off the headline. I was like, why isn't it so easy to do what the Big Ten's going to do? And then I read the rivalries and I started scratching my head because I always wanted the SEC to do this, like Georgia, keep Tennessee, keep Florida, keep Auburn. And I was like, this is beautiful. And then I read into it and I was like, wait a minute. How did they even decide this?
Right. Penn State got royally screwed. Like, how are we not playing Ohio State and Michigan every year like we currently are? Like, those are the 2 games. Those
are your 3 marquee teams, in my opinion.
Right. So we're playing Ohio State in 24. Not playing them in 2025 though. So we're not playing Michigan in 2025 either.
When I read 3 protected, these protected rivalries, I thought it wouldn't change at all through the years. Is that how you read the headline?
Yeah, I mean, until I got down there and it's like, oh yeah, Penn State's the only. That's the thing. They're the only one that doesn't have a single protected. So they're the only team that has 3 2 plays, is what they're calling them. You'll play certain teams in 24 and 25, and then they'll switch them in 26 every 2 years.
I disagree with that model.
So they want every team to play every other team at least twice in a 4-year period. I don't know. I think it's stupid. I don't like it. They're not going to have divisions either starting next season. And so the top 2 teams in the conference will make the Big Ten championship, which is probably how it should be anyways, with how bad the Big Ten West usually is every year.
And I don't disagree with that part. That's the part that they, got right. And you can look at it from a plethora of ways, if that makes sense. You could go from professional sports all the way down. You could just have the NL and the AL in baseball and have the top teams make the playoffs, NBA, and it should trickle down to college. And I've always said that the SEC East has not been as strong as the SEC West.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting better. You're hiring better coaches. I would like to see just, the top two teams. If the SEC goes away from it, right now they're going to an 8-team schedule and keeping the divisions as they add teams. So when I read this, I always had the back of my mind SEC teams or the SEC model in the back of my mind, and I agree with Kirby Smart with what he said is, hey man, we're making this rocket science when we're not. Let's play each other. Let's lay out a schedule. Keep your non-conference how you want it, and that's the big thing in all of expansion is keep your rivalries, and then have your two best teams play, and then move on. Now, we all know when you go to a 12-team playoff, the rich are going to get richer and the poor are going to get poorer.
Yeah. Well, the SEC is doing away with divisions next year when Texas and Oklahoma come out. So that'll be a good thing. They just are hold up on that 8-9 conference thing. But yeah, no divisions for SEC next year as well, which will be weird. But anyway, let's move on to NFL news. The Bills have been in the news for like the last 3 weeks, and they continue to be because quarterback Josh Allen announced as the Madden 24 cover athlete. Sure, why not?
But with saying that, hands down, the best picture on Madden in how long? Yeah. I love that he is next to the fans. And if I'm a Packers fan, I would be very upset about that, if that makes sense. Like, hey, we know the Lambeau Leap. Why didn't this happen before?
I don't know. Well, I mean, I don't know. Well, Rodgers really didn't jump up there, and neither did Favre. So,
but you have to give it to the marketing team. High five.
Bills Mafia represent. The Vikings also in the news for a couple of different reasons, which one we'll talk about a little bit later. But they are currently receiving trade calls surrounding pass rusher Danielle Hunter. And it's just like the Vikings are doing a complete 180. They're like, we're getting youth. We're kicking out everyone else. And we're just going to retool, not rebuild. Retool, though. With Jaron Hall as the future, I guess. Considering he's the young quarterback on the roster now. But yeah, Danielle Hunter, though, I mean, I would probably think somewhere in the range of a second-round pick. He's not elite, I don't think, but he's definitely one of the better pass rushers. He's great, but not elite.
I agree.
A couple Panthers notes. I don't know. I'm completely missed putting his name on the script, but Panthers pass rusher Brian Burns switching to a number 0. The only other, I know there's a couple guys that have done it. The only one I really know is Calvin Ridley, but well, sucks for those who ordered his jersey. Not going to be 53 anymore. Luckily, I did not order a Brian Burns jersey. I ordered a Bryce Young jersey. So,
did it come in a baby size or an actual size?
It hasn't come yet.
Just kidding.
It's the latest delivery by September 19th or something like that. I don't understand why it takes so long, but whatever. Speaking of Bryce Young, Good news. He has been elevated to the QB1 spot by head coach Frank Reich, taking the next step, as Coach Reich said. So he will get the starting reps from here on out, and then we'll get the inevitable during training camp and get him announced as week 1 starter. Very exciting. Couple injuries. It's not even that time of year, right? We're not in the training camp yet. It's not injury time.
Non-contact.
But we have injuries from mandatory mini camps this week. Falcons, they have lost their punt returner, Avery Williams, for the season. Torn ACL, like you said, non-contact injury in practice. Done for the year. And Panthers, corner J.C. Horn. He is in a walking boot, which he will be in for the next few weeks. Expected to be ready for training camp, though, luckily. So that's the good news anyways. No surgery required for his ankle injury. The Vikings have finally officially released running back Dalvin Cook today. And actually just 10 minutes ago, 4:01 p.m. Eastern, he was eligible to sign with any team he wants to. He said he's going to take his time, though, which is good for him, because he's already making $2 million this year, regardless. The Vikings owe him $2 million guaranteed, so he's going to say, all right, I'm going to take my $2 million and just sit back and let the teams come to me. So for the cap, for the Vikings, $9 million saved in cap space, $5.1 million dead cap hit there. Dolphins, Broncos interested. You like either of those teams? Those were the two that have been announced anyways.
I actually think both are a really good fit. You know, you got Russell Wilson trying to bounce back. You know, you got Tua coming in off of injuries. Both of them have receivers that can get downfield and open up the middle of the field or even the edge. I would like to see him in Miami just because, you know, we know where he played his college football at Florida State. Mm-hmm. I still think that he is a valuable piece to an offense. You know, with that said, I would like to see him in a Dolphins uniform.
The Dolphins, I don't understand why they keep adding running backs. They signed their whole running back room. They re-signed their whole running back room. Then they go draft Devin Achane. And now they're apparently in on Dalvin Cook. Like, how many running backs do you need?
I guess that comes down to, we know he's established, but then, you know, I said I'd like to see him in a Dolphins uniform. You brought up good points. Then why not Denver? You know, we know that the Walmart headers who bought the Broncos have money. They paid a big contract for Sean Payton. Sean Payton, now that you've said that, he's established how he can use Alvin Kamara. You know, you're coming in to resurrect Russell Wilson's career. He only had one bad year. He's been good in Seattle. Why not Denver then?
Yeah, I think that's a better fit. I think Javonte Williams did well when he was splitting with Melvin Gordon, as much as I hate the split system for fantasy purposes. But I'm going to throw out another one, and I hate to say it because I'm an Eagles fan, but the Dallas Cowboys popped into my head. I think that makes a lot of sense. Without Tony Pollard, we don't know if Pollard's going to be ready to go 100% week 1. And even if he is, we haven't seen him carry the load. And I think their system worked well when they had a kind of thunder and lightning approach.
Now that you bring that up, I can't tell you any reasons why that wouldn't work, especially with Dak coming off the season that he had with 15 turnovers,
Mm-hmm.
and miss time. People think 15 turnovers over a season. Well, it wasn't over in a season. It was a clump of games. I think that could help his case, and they have a conundrum with what they're going to do with his. I wouldn't personally give him any big numbers. He'd have to prove himself this year. But are you willing to wait to see what Justin is going to get in San Diego? Are you going to match that contract? Or are you going to move on? I think that's a great destination. Uh, we're both Panthers fans. They have a young quarterback. Obviously, in my mind, they're going to start him, even if they've had good production. Is it good to bring in a veteran in the backfield just to help somebody that is a first year signal caller? I
They got Miles though. They got Miles.
They do, but I'm a person that likes to add as many pieces as you can to get better, as long as it's not a huge hit. With what you said, hey, I'm going to wait and let teams come to you. What teams are going to come to them? The Bills. Do they need a running back? They're on the cusp of knocking on that door.
No, they signed Ramondre Stevenson in free agency. James Cook.
That's what I was going to say, and they still had James Cook. But if you're not sure about everything, that's the only reason that I think the Dolphins are interested in him, even though they signed a lot of people. Were you signing people just to have a big room, or do you want somebody that's established?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and who knows? Who knows how much he has left because he's going to turn 28 in August. Um, but coming off 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons, so you know. All right. We had another XFL to NFL here. This is a signing, though. Most of the previous ones have been camp invites to mandatory minicamp this week. But we do have a signing. The Cardinals signing defenders wide receiver Brandon Smith. Decent production in the defenders' offense. He wasn't the main focal point like Lucky Jackson was, but can also return punts as well, like he did at Iowa. So, yeah, good signing. And the Cardinals probably need it. Anyways, some free agent deals. How about the Broncos keeping Chiefs defensive end Frank Clark in division 1 year, $7.5 million, $5.5 million guaranteed, and
I like it.
A pass rusher.
I like the signing. Is there a reason why you wouldn't like the signing?
No, I mean Denver needed pass rush help since they traded Bradley Chubb.
And think about some people that have been on Peyton's schemes on the other side of the ball. We know everybody says he's a offensive guru. He always had somebody on the pass rusher in New Orleans, and I think it's a good signing. Every time that you pull up to a stadium in division, he's used to what they're running, what the quarterbacks are doing. I think it's a good sign.
Yeah, it'll probably feel good to get after Patrick Mahomes instead of
that's a different beast in itself, though.
And I mentioned the Bills keep coming up. Well, they signed another person. Corner Cameron Dantzler, former third-round pick of the Vikings a couple years ago. 1 year deal here, and Buffalo just keeps getting better. Leonard Floyd last week, and Dantzler this week. Why not?
Hey, they knew how they fell short in the playoffs, and they're trying to fill that gap in my mind.
Yeah, and definitely the defensive additions were needed. Areas of need, corner and pass rush. And then your Rams today signing Ravens wide receiver DeMarcus Robinson, wide receiver 4 on the depth chart right now. We'll get more into their depth chart later, but decent signing. He's used to being a depth player anyways.
I think if Sean McVay goes back to being somewhat creative where he was before, I think you could see him also rushing the ball in different schemes.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of went away from that the Robert Woods end around kind of thing that they were using in the Super Bowl year. And we have a couple visits lined up for Cardinals. Free agent wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins. Titans going to be coming up this Sunday, and then the Patriots next week. Titans doesn't make sense to me. I understand he has connection to Vrabel. They were both in Houston at the same time. But I mean, the Titans do make sense in the fact that he would literally get all the targets in Tennessee.
So, without anyone, I don't care if anyone disagrees. I don't like either of these visits, besides the fact that he's got some familiarity with the head coach, like you said, with the Tennessee Titans. He doesn't. Matt Jones, is he a good quarterback? Is he a bad quarterback? We don't know yet. Are you really going to win anything in that division? In my mind, the Patriots are still behind the curve, whether it's the Bills or the Dolphins. I would like to see him go somewhere where he's knocking on the door of being in the Super Bowl. He's a hard worker. He hasn't been in trouble. He was undisputedly the most reliable receiver with the Texans. They did make the playoffs a few times. I get that. Deshaun Watson was young at the time. Not to go on this big rant, I would like him. I hope, in my opinion, I hope he goes and visits a lot of teams and not just these two teams and picks. Now, teams have to want him to be there to get the visits, but I honestly don't like either of these, in my opinion. Okay, are you saying that the Titans have a really good defense and a really good running back, but you're still asking yourself, how good is Tannehill and how healthy is he going to be?
Yeah, I mean, both of the teams he's going to get, well, Tennessee more. Like I said, he will literally get all the targets because they don't have anyone at receiver in Tennessee other than Treylon Burks. Patriots, it's kind of the same thing. They have guys. They have more guys than Tennessee does. But there aren't any really star guys. So he would also get a lot of targets. Patriots-wise, he has the connection with Bill O'Brien, who is the head coach for his last couple of years in Houston.
Which is funny that you bring that up. He did him wrong, in my opinion, as the head coach of the Texans. Does that make sense? Now, the offense boiled down to him having success. And you can put your pride to the side, but the way that he shipped them to Arizona was crazy in my mind.
Well, when he was first getting mentioned, or when he first got released, I said there's a green and white team located in a an area that has in a state that has multiple NFL teams on the East Coast that also has a bird mascot. So that also the defending NFC champions.
And they're really good. Here's another West Coast team, and he's from South Carolina. He's a Southern guy, a guy that I worked with at Western, that worked underneath me, actually are best friends. And when I was leaving a Tennessee Volunteers baseball game against Western, we were on the way home, and DeAndre Hopkins called him and said, "Hey, I'll never play." And it wasn't a bad call. He said, "I'm not going to suit up for the Cardinals anymore." Mm-hmm. And I'm talking about best friends, small school, South Carolina. This guy walked on as a cornerback for Clemson. So I knew he was not going to be with Arizona. But here's my other question. If you make a bunch of money and you're maybe on the tail end of your career but have a lot to give, why wouldn't you take less money? I know that the 49ers have a really good wide receiver. They were on the cusp of a playoff, stay in division, and go opposite side of that receiver.
Yeah. Depends if the quarterback works out there or not. But we will see where D-Hop lands. Okay, I don't have any more news, so we're gonna go into USFL pick standings here. Mark, you're 4 games back. You were the only loss last week. You had your lone wolf with the Generals against my Showboats, and that did not work out. Logan and I, we picked the South Division, so they went 4-0 against the North teams, which was good.
Hey, I went against the worst name in the world, Showboats. Get out of here. I'm kidding.
So Logan has caught you back up to 1 game. There, he is back to 500, and like I mentioned, you're 4 games back, Logan. 5 games back of myself.
I think you're just cheating. That's all. No, I'm just kidding.
So let's start off tomorrow. We have the Panthers at the Maulers. Logan didn't send me his picks yet, so we'll see what he does. But you and I are on the Panthers. This was a really close. It's going to be a close game, I think. Anyways, 2 teams that, well, the Panthers. I mean, they are second right now in the division in the USFL North. 1 game back of the Stars for first place. And the Maulers, even at 2-6, they're in it. They 1 game back of second place. So it's a big game for both teams. And I just think Michigan's going to win it. I'm basing it really off the quarterback play. Both defenses are pretty solid. But I think Josh Love is better quarterback than Troy Williams at this point in the season from what I've seen. So
quarterback play besides turnovers, you got to have a good quarterback.
Yeah. Total is 41.
Ooh, 41.
Yeah, it's tough. I'm probably going with the under. But it'll be close. There's a lot of things in this game that are close. That's why I don't like to. That's why I'm not playing anything in this game. So.
41's the number where you're like, that's great if you hit it, but it's so many variables. You could go over, you could go way under.
Yeah. We'll see if this is an offensive or defensive game. But 12 p.m. on Fox tomorrow. Also tomorrow, the Breakers at my Memphis Showboats. And, of course, I am picking Memphis. Memphis 5-game win streak. Todd Haley has these boys rolling. Their defense has allowed, I don't know the exact number, but they haven't allowed more than, I think, 20 points in their 5-game win streak. So their defense is playing outstanding right now. And Cole Kelly on offense doing enough. They had a 100-yard performance on the ground by Kareth White last week in a win. And this is a big one as well. These are 2 of 3 teams tied at 5-3 in a 3-way tie for second place currently with the Houston Gamblers as well. So who gets the leg up? Hope for a Houston loss, and you could find yourself in second place by yourself at the end of the week.
It's hard to go against an established coach. I have a lot of respect for Todd Haley, but I'm just in the boat, pun, Showboats, that every streak has to come to an end, and it ends tomorrow.
Yeah, and it's a pick'em game. I think this is going to be the best game of the weekend, probably. McLeod Bethel Thompson for New Orleans, really solid last week in their bounce back after they had lost 3 straight after starting 4-0, got the win last week to finally stop the bleeding. And yeah, both teams, really good teams. Total is 43.5. I have the under in this game because of Memphis's defense. Like I said, they're playing outstanding. And I expect that to be the case once again. They have some guys out, Kyrie Woods at safety, Jeff McCulloch at edge rush. But I think they have enough other dudes on the defense that they can hold MBT in the offense down. Wes Hills hasn't been a factor the last couple of weeks in terms of yards on the ground. So I think if they hold him and hopefully MBT doesn't go off like he did last week when they had two 100-yard receivers in Jay Adams and Johnny Dixon. So 3 p.m. on NBC. Let's go to Sunday. The Stallions at the Gamblers. You and I are opposite sides again, Mark. Again, because it's close. It's I think all 4 games should be very close this weekend, even matchups. The Stallions are just they're showing that they're the defending champs. I mean, they've lost 3 games in the 2 USFL seasons so far. So it's hard to go against them. And Alex Magoo was just on fire last week. 333 yards, 3 touchdowns. I think he threw a pick, but he's got his offense rolling. So this should be an offensive explosion, I think, with both teams.
I think the no-brainer is to go with the pedigree, defending champs, and I'm just rolling the dice again. I think sometimes you got to have an antagonist on the show, and hey, it's time to dethrone somebody, and why not now?
Well, and you're full of the puns, rolling the dice with the Houston Gamblers. That's what being a dad does to you, though.
Hey, if you're on my social media, you know what I'm about.
But yeah, again, big game here. Gamblers, if they would win, would move into a 3-way tie with Birmingham and whoever wins the other game between Memphis and New Orleans. So it could just flip-flop from the 3-way tie at 5-3 to a 3-way tie at 6-3. Otherwise, Birmingham wins.
Somebody's got to lose.
They're still in sole place of first place, and it would be a 7-2, 6-3, and then a 5-4 tie at third place. Total is 45.5. Like I said, I think this one for some reason is going to be an offensive explosion. So I think that the over hits in this one. We have Danny Potter, our guy. He loves the 4th and 51. Last week we were out drinking at the Tiki Bar and we were watching the Houston-Pittsburgh game, which was fantastic because I won money on that. But 4th and 51, that was an actual down and distance in that game for the Houston Gamblers last weekend. But they came back and they won, so it's good. Won me money.
Well, I mean, not to pun it, but they gamble, right? They gamble.
They did not gamble on that one, though. not on 4th and 51. 2 p.m. on NBC Sunday afternoon. And then the primetime game on Sunday, competing with Sunday Night Baseball. Stars at the Generals. And we are finally in lockstep once again. We bookend the games together. This one, we are going against the lock. It's actually the lock of the USFL betting people. They like 2.5 for Philly. I love 2.5 for the Generals. You know why? Because the Stars allow the most points per game in the USFL. And I'm banking on DeAndre Johnson coming back and playing well this week, getting a win, maybe even moving them to second place in a tie if the Maulers would upset the Panthers, which we don't want to see because we picked Michigan. But
I like this. I mean, 2.5 is too close not to pick it.
Yeah, I played the Generals plus 2.5. And if it hits, it hits. They probably need to win for it to hit, but I've seen Stranger Things, not the show, even though I have seen that as well. But
hey,
yeah.
hey,
This Case Cookus, hopefully he struggles against the New Jersey defense here. Total is 44. Under. I like the under.
Under, by far.
Why not? 7 p.m. on Fox.
Ooh, they got the late game, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, let's talk about your division here, the NFC West season preview. So this is our third one. We've done the NFC South and the AFC South so far. So moving to the NFC West. And I like to put impact players for the 2023 season. And this division is really about the quarterbacks this year in my mind. Can Geno replicate his 22 season with the new contract this year? Well, that is something we will watch. Colt McCoy, he is up there. Yes, he is an impact player this year for Arizona because he will be starting the season as the guy until Kyler Murray comes back. We'll see how he does first, however many games Kyler is out. Third guy, you know who that is, right?
Maybe, maybe not. I don't know.
That is your defensive coordinator, LA Rams DC Raheem Morris, who is a fantastic man and a hero, saving a 3-year-old kid from drowning. I don't know when that was, weeks or was that months ago? I can't remember.
Time flies, but it was before Memorial Day. I think it was the end of April.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, great guy and a hero. But yeah, he is going to be pivotal this year with a lot of new faces on the Rams, especially on defense. I think the defensive side is the more key unit this year for LA. And then the two quarterbacks in San Francisco. Everyone and their mother thinks it's Brock Purdy. He's going to be the guy. Who knows? Maybe he's not ready. It sounds like he's going to be ready with his elbow injury, but Trey Lance is still there. He was the number 3 overall pick for a reason. We'll see who wins out. But we're going to start off with the Seahawks re-signings. Geno Smith, QB Geno Smith, quarterback Drew Lock, corner Artie Burns, and kicker Jason Myers. They didn't do a lot in terms of keeping their guys and adding free agents anyways. Because free agency-wise, they added what they needed, which was D-line help. They added 3 D tackles, Jaron Reed, Mario Edwards Jr., and the biggest one, Draymond Jones. I'm not sure exactly, but it may be figuratively and literally. Don't know the exact weights on those 3 guys, but just saying. And then linebackers Bobby Wagner and Devin Bush, and safety Julian Love. So no offensive free agent additions to note anyways. There were a couple, but these are the big names anyways.
I hate to say this. The way that you feel about the Cowboys, I've always felt when we're talking about going 4-12 under Steve Spagnuolo, as a Rams fan in St. Louis, they're out west now. We've been to their stadium, had a good time there, and won 65-7. I got to just throw that in because I just hate that the Rams are out there. I don't think they had to do a lot because there are so many other question marks inside the division, if that makes sense. You know, if you're in another division, you have to go and get a wide receiver. You have to go get an edge rusher. You have to do X, Y, and Z to keep up with these teams that you know should be in the playoffs late in the season. I think that the Seahawks looked around and said, okay, you're losing Hopkins. You got injuries. Is Stafford healthy? You guys weren't good. Your coaching staff had turnovers. So we're going to stay solid. We've been solid for all these years. We competed without Russell Wilson. So now we're going to re-sign the guy that did do well. And so I in my opinion, and it could be totally different. They could be at the – I think this I really do believe the NFC West is you take a coin and you flip it up in the air and see how it lands, and that might be the division in itself, if that makes sense to people watching. And so I commend the organization and Pete for keeping up with the model that they have, because right now everybody, in my opinion, even the 49ers, because you don't know who's healthy. You could have a quarterback battle and you want to start a person that you spent a lot of investment on, but yet is Brock better than him? If he is and they solidify that, we all know the 49ers have the most talent in the division, in my opinion. But if I'm ahead of the Seahawks or you're a GM of the Seahawks, let's not change anything and see how this year goes. If it's a bad year, then yes, we enter the offseason. We have a lot of things that we need to flip around or address. But right now, just because we know who the Seattle Seahawks have, I do. And if you were asking me who's going to win this division, I would peg Seattle to be number one. And I hate that. It tastes like vinegar because I hate their colors. I hate the battles that I've had with the Rams and Russell between the Rams. And more than anything, I hate that Seahawk neon BS color.
Well, I mean, I think the guys that they did get were good. Like I said, they got guys at the areas of need, which was D-line was their biggest area of need. Signed 3D tackles. I think they focused more on the draft because they had a really nice draft for the second straight year in a row, mind you. Last year was fantastic. This year looks really good as well on paper so far. Going on to their losses in the offseason, running backs Rashad Penny and Travis Homer, fullback Colin Gillespie, wide receivers Marquise Goodwin and Laquan Treadwell. Guard Gabe Jackson is a free agent still, as is center Austin Blythe. So they added 3D tackles. They lost 3D tackles as well. Puna Ford, Quentin Jefferson, and Al Woods. Edge rusher Shelby Harris is a free agent. Edge rusher LJ Collier they lost. Linebacker Cody Barton. Linebacker Bruce Irvin is a free agent still, as is corner Justin Coleman. They also lost safeties Jonathan Abram and Ryan Neal. And long snapper Carson Tinker is a free agent right now.
Now, a question I have for you: do you think they're going to miss one of the wide receivers that they lost?
No, their depth chart is fantastic with the addition of JSN as the third guy. It's not very deep, but they have guys that they've drafted the last couple of seasons: D. Eskridge and Derek Young, a free agent. An undrafted free agent that I absolutely love from UCLA, Jake Bobo, son of our guy, Mike Bobo.
Yes, he is.
So they also have Cade Johnson, who is I can't remember if they drafted him or undrafted out of South Dakota State.
That would be, not to spend too much time. A quarterback looks good. Obviously, what you said, drafting, I love Walker as the running back. And as long as you can replace the receiver's production or even just a decoy at times, I still think they're a good team.
Well, yeah, and that's like a lot of the guys that they lost, I don't think are going to hurt them. Like I said, the D tackles were an in and out kind of thing. And then the receivers, I didn't really have an issue with that. And the biggest person they lost, I thought, was Rashad Penny. Mm-hmm. But they did just fine they drafted Zach Charbonnet. So
I agree.
All right, let's move on to the schedule here. Week 1, your Rams are in Seattle. That is the Week 1 game. I have Seattle winning that one. I don't think the Rams are going to be ready Week 1 to compete with them. So Week 1, I had them that is a win. Loss in Detroit Week 2. That's going to be a very close game. But I do have Jared Goff eking it out against Seattle in a shootout. They beat the Panthers in Seattle week 3, and then they beat the Giants at the Giants on Monday Night Football week 4. Very early bye. I hate that. Week 5 bye week. 3-1 though to go in there. Week 6 at the Bengals. That's a loss.
Yeah.
They get 2 home wins in week 7 against the Cardinals and week 8 against the Browns. They go to Baltimore week 9. That's a loss for me. Week 10 is home against the Commanders. I have that as a win. They lose in LA to the Rams week 11. I think the Rams will be good by then. Finally, not good, but they'll be okay to compete with Seattle at that point. This is like a weird stretch. The week 11 through 17 is just rough. And like I said, I think it's just weird for some reason because they play back-to-back Thursday night football games.
Ooh.
12 and 13. Week 12, they are home against the 49ers. I have that as a loss.
Okay.
Week 13, they go to Dallas. I have that as a win. And then week 14, they play the 49ers again in San Francisco, though. I have them winning that. I have them splitting with the Rams and Cardinals, or the Rams and the 49ers, and sweeping the Cardinals. Week 15, of course, I'm going to be a homer. They're hosting the Eagles. I have that as a loss. But they end the season with 3 straight wins. At Tennessee, home against the Steelers, and at the Cardinals. So 11-7 is one of the better records I've given out so far in our 3 division previews.
I would be on par with that. The only game that I would circle,
11-6.
I mean, there's a few that I think could go 50-50, but I actually think if the Giants are going to make a leap by keeping Daniel Jones and Saquon this year and everything on a Monday night marquee game, I actually have the Giants winning that game. So you could still go 11-7. They might lose it and pick up another win where you said they lost. So I'm on par with what you're saying.
Yeah, I did my calculation wrong. It's 11-6 actually. 17 games, not 18. There's 18 weeks.
Sorry.
17 games. Yeah. Well, that was one. There is the Ravens game I could also be seeing flipped as a win for Seattle, as is the Steelers. I think that could possibly be a loss for Seattle as well. I'm very high on my Steelers this year.
Instead of the Steelers game, I was thinking the Titans. If you have to go to Nashville, depending on, who's healthy and whatnot, that could be a loss. I was thinking about that as well. And you know what? What I find really intriguing, and I'll make a small point, is the Ravens game. So we all know the contract that Lamar just finally got done through all this turmoil. I think that would be a fun game, and I'm not picking people because they look like each other in the mirror. I'm picking it is, okay, would you rather pay Lamar this much money or would you rather pay Geno this much money? So I think that could be a fun game to see what the outcome is. And no doubt, in my opinion, however the game comes out to a win or loss for either sides, that's what people are going to talk about on Get Up, Sports Center, Around the Horn, PTI. Everything is going to be about who performed and how much money do you really want to pay.
Yeah, well, we do got the little sound effects now, so there you go. You're talking about money.
I like it. Cha-ching,
baby. We get a little of that. But anyways, yeah. So 11-6 for me. I think that might win the division, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see how the other 3 turn out. Fantasy wise, let's talk about Geno. You were just talking about him. He's not a guy that I am probably drafting. I like him better this year than when he was like no one knew what was going to happen last year with him. I do think he is a good QB2. I'm not going to put him in the QB1 category right now. I think QB2 is a good backup for you with QB1 potential.
Depending on the matchups, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I don't know that they're
fantastic. Week 1 is a fantastic matchup.
I don't know anyone in this division right now that you would put QB1 unless they're totally healthy.
Right. Mark just totally sideswiped the Week 1 is a great matchup for Geno Smith comment.
You just put my boy right here as an impact player. I'm not saying anything. No, at home with the fan base that you have and going back to your point, getting the D line that you have and coming, are you going to play Matthew Stafford? Are you going to play the Georgia quarterback that we love? Or are you going to play who are you going to really play against? I think that is a great matchup week 1.
All right. Kenneth Walker III had a great rookie season last year, was dinged up a little bit, but should be good to go this season. And yeah, I mean, he's kind of the same situation as Geno, though. I don't know if I can trust him as my starting running back, which obviously different position. You start 2 running backs in a standard league. So, but I do like him as an RB2, RB1 upside. Definitely dynasty. He is a must-have if you're doing a startup league. But RB2 for me, not a superstar just yet. The wide receivers, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. DK is DK. Wide receiver 1 all the way, especially with the offense that they have now with Geno. It's easy money. He's going to be a 2nd round pick probably. So startable. Tyler Lockett is an interesting one. I've been trying to get rid of Tyler Lockett in my dynasty league. He's right at 30, I think, or maybe he's 31 now. But you're starting to see some decline from him. And while there are still target shares and there isn't anyone until we don't know how well JSN is going to progress this year. Now that they do have someone there to possibly take over for him, we'll see how he does and what the target share looks like. So I'm comfortable with drafting Tyler Lockett, definitely. Just maybe as my flex play or at the most a wide receiver 3.
Well, my question to you was, how do you feel about losing the 2 wide receivers? And I agree with you. Did they have a huge impact? Or are they going to have a huge loss? But when you're talking about fantasy, and maybe if you're talking about fantasy, you circle it a little bit bigger as how is this team going to be successful? Right now, in my opinion, there's only one clear-cut target that is going to, in a word I would use would be consistent. We know DK is going to be big. He's going to get open. He's got speed. But if you if you have your defense hone in on him, it's got to open up something for somebody else. And that question becomes, who is that person?
Right. Well, maybe it's the next guy. Who knows? Probably not. But tight end, Noah Fant is the starter right now. They've been they've had so many tight ends, and they still have like a good threesome at tight end with Fant, Will Dissly, Colby Parkinson. Those 3 are good. It's a good trio of tight ends. There's just not like anything special there, So it's not like when the Seahawks had Greg Olsen, like he was the guy. But yeah, Noah Fant, I'm not drafting. he'll get drafted. Someone is going to take him as their backup tight end probably. But the stats just haven't been there in his time in Seattle for me anyways. So I am not looking at Noah Fant.
I agree with that.
The kicker, though, I am looking. Jason Myers is fantastic. He is one of the most consistent kickers in the NFL. Has a big leg as well, so can get you those 5-point field goals, those 50-plus yarders. And the Seahawks offense is, that's one of the big things you have to take into account when you're looking at a kicker. Is their offense good enough that he's going to get either a lot of extra point opportunities, which is more along the lines of Harrison Butker and the Chiefs offense, or is your offense in the top half of the league where you're going to get mid-range of extra points, but you're going to get a lot of field goal opportunities? And that's what I think the Seahawks are, is maybe not a top 5, top 10 offense, but they're good enough to get Jason Myers a lot of looks in the field goal range with a decent amount of extra points as well. So I think he's a top 5 kicker this year.
I like that assessment.
And he knows how to kick in Seattle, which is a key as well. You never know.
Not to drag on the show, but I was going to say something about just being there and knowing the atmosphere and the fans.
Yeah. How about the Seahawks defense? They did a lot of stuff this offseason to help. And I think their secondary is going to lock it down with the drafting of Devon Witherspoon to pair with last year's rookie sensation Tariq Woolen, which who knew that was going to happen? I think we did, because we love UTSA and a lot of guys come out of there. Jamal Adams has to play better, though, for sure.
He's the key.
But, they got Bobby Wagner back in the middle of that defense. And it's interesting. They're switching. I believe it's a switch to a 3-4. They were normally a 4-3 team.
Yeah.
As far as I could remember.
Always.
So a 3-4 though now. And which is actually, I think, better for them based off the personnel that they have. So I think they're going to be all right. Not a starting defense for sure in fantasy. I think it's a good streaming option though, depending on the week. And if you are someone that likes to have 2 defenses on your roster, I think they're a decent option as a backup defense.
What's wild is we just went through this whole fantasy thing. Think about it. And there's only one person that you're taking as a marquee person or marquee guy.
Mm-hmm.
But yet I still think the sum of everything in division is they're a really good team.
Yeah.
No one is looking at Seattle going, oh, man, I want to draft somebody on my fantasy team. I'm looking at it. Oh, man, that guy dropped off or that guy dropped off. But you're still looking at it as this is a well put together team. And I'm not changing gears because I've been a basketball coach. The Seahawks remind me of the Miami Heat. They're an 8 seed. They're in the finals. You wouldn't take any of these guys right off the board as fantasy guys. But, gosh, they compete and they win constantly.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk about the rookies here to end the Seattle portion. So I mentioned Zach Charbonnet earlier. He's going to be the backup to Kenneth Walker. But I think he'll get a decent amount of carries. He's a guy that you're going to draft a little bit later, I think anyways, in Dynasty rookie drafts, which we have my league is drafting tomorrow, which is going to be a good time. I traded up to the 6th overall pick, so we'll see who I get there. But he's a guy you're going to draft a little bit later in the rookie draft with, who knows what the future is going to hold. Seattle usually likes to go a one-man system. It's this guy, and he's going to run it. We saw that for years with Marshawn Lynch. He was the dude. Not many other guys got the ball. And I think that's kind of what they're trying to do with Kenneth Walker as well. So, again, you're not going to look at him in redraft at all unless Walker would get hurt like he did last year. But Dynasty, I think, is a decent option. If you have a taxi squad like our league did, we just added that last year. I think he's a solid option to put on the taxi squad there to just kind of develop. And then the guy that has a lot better potential, JSN, Jackson Smith-Njigba, first-round wide receiver there for the Seahawks, 20th overall, I believe was his number. I love him. Dynasty, he's going to be maybe a first-round pick. Redraft, someone's going to draft him, I think. I don't think he's going to go undrafted. It's tough to draft the wide receiver 3 on a team. But like I mentioned with Tyler Lockett, though, I think this season you might see Lockett and JSN kind of split the wide receiver 2 numbers.
And don't forget about who's coaching them either. It's a guy that's had talent at skill positions, if that makes sense. And he's either helped them at the college level, definitely have helped them at the professional level. And I think you have to get more creative when you don't have somebody that may be an MVP caliber quarterback. Not taking anything away from Geno at all, because we know the season he had. But this guy has had thunder and lightning at USC. He's used Marshawn Lynch as a linchpin. Again, a pun. He's done different things. I think he can really develop these rookies who do have talent.
I totally agree. JSN, they're a mild fantasy outlook this year anyways. Next year, different story. Move on to the Cardinals. So Cardinals re-signings here. Quarterback David Blau might be a big re-signing. We'll see. Wide receiver Greg Dortch. Offensive tackle Kelvin Beachum. Guard Will Hernandez. Corner Antonio Hamilton. Kicker Matt Prater. And long snapper Aaron Brewer. Free agent signings. Quarterback Jeff Driscoll. Wide receiver Zach Pascal. Guard Dennis Daly. Edge rusher LJ Collier. Linebacker Kaiser White. Corner Rashad Fenton. And punter Matt Hawk. Not a lot of superstar names in that on the list there for the retentions and signings.
Yeah, I'm a bit worried about the Cardinals. You got a new coach as well. I don't know anything else to say. Going into week 1, does anyone know what the Cardinals are going to be and how competitive they're going to be? That would be my question to anybody.
They're not going to be competitive. That's the thing. But when I look at these guys here, Kaiser White and Zach Pascal, I think were the 2 key free agents. Now, Zach Pascal not going to get a lot of targets, but him and Kaiser White are essential free agents because they know Jonathan Gannon's scheme and they know what kind of offense he wants for his offensive coordinator to run. So coming from Philly, both of those guys. So I think that's why those are key. And Matt Prater also. I'm talking a lot about kickers today, but again, we'll talk more about him later. But
that was honestly, when you were reading off the names and you know a lot more about the free agent signings, just time, and I have other things to do. Matt Prater was a big thing that I said, oh, crap, they got Matt Prater.
Yeah.
They're at least going to score field goals if they get in range.
If they get there. That's a big if. losses this offseason: quarterback Trace McSorley, running back Darrell Williams is a free agent, wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins is a free agent. They just released him. They lost wide receiver Chosen Anderson. Wide receiver AJ Green is a free agent, as is tight end Max Williams and guard Justin Pugh, both free agents still. They lost guard Cody Ford, lost guard Max Garcia, who is a free agent right now. Center Rodney Hudson retired. Center Billy Price is a free agent. Defensive end J.J. Watt retired. Defensive end Zach Allen they lost. They also lost edge rusher Marcus Golden. Linebacker Nick Vigil is a free agent currently. They lost linebacker Camus Grogier-Hill and corner Byron Murphy. And finally, corner Josh Jackson and punter Andy Lee, both still free agents. So there's a lot of guys they still could re-sign if they wish. But they lost a lot.
I mean, in my mind, I guess the best question to ask is this a total rebuild?
Oh, yeah. Like, they don't even have the foundation right now.
So,
like, who even knows what their core is?
In saying that, and you're going to be a GM one day, I didn't say that he's aspiring. I didn't say that he wants to be. Rusty's going to be a GM one day. Looking back over, the past 3 to 4 years, right? They had a window. They got these guys. Would you, as a GM, would you give total control as much as they gave to their head coach? And you had a guy that you drafted 9-10. Then you went and got this quarterback. He gets injured. He wasn't performing. Is this a exclamation point for the teams across the league to go, man, we're not going to do that ever? Like, we saw what the Cardinals did, and now it's in shambles.
Well, I think that the biggest issue with what they had was, and it's always contentious when this happens, is when you keep one, but you hire a new one at the other position, talking about GM and head coach. If you don't have continuity and, like, if you're not on the same page with your head coach and GM, you're not going to win. That's why it works so well. And this is kind of being contradictory to Philadelphia. But Philadelphia, Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman, they are in sync with everything they do and they share everything. But that wasn't the case in Arizona. Cliff Kingsbury and Steve Keim butted heads a lot, and it just wasn't working out. It doesn't work like the Eagles did a lot when a new head coach comes in with a GM that has been there through multiple head coaches. It usually doesn't work like that, and it didn't in Arizona.
And I agree wholeheartedly. You hit it on the point. I think that's more for viewers to understand. And it's professional all the way down. I mean, you could even say high school. I don't want to get into that, but you could be a really good coach and a really good recruiter at the college level, but you have to be in step with your administration at the college level, which would then be your GM at the professional level. And that's been the beauty at, places at Georgia, Alabama. They're putting resources. They're backing you. If you're coming in, you better be in step with your GM. You better, I love watching, I watch draft day leading up to draft day, and you can be all on different, trajectories as long as you bring everybody in. And I think that's what's lost. And that's the beauty about the NFL is the minute that you sell a ticket in the NFL or a bucket of popcorn, everybody's on the same playing level. Where in baseball, the Yankees are going to have a bigger payroll. The Angels are going to have a bigger payroll. Things like that. So the NFL is so important to being in step with who your GM is, your owner, your scouts. It goes across the board that we're all on the same page. Otherwise, it's going to end, in my opinion. We had a trajectory of the Cardinals. think about this. They started out 8-0, 2 years ago? And then they fizzled out through the ends of the season, and people weren't on the same page because of that. That's all it is we're not on the same page of who we want to play, how we're going to rest people, what we're going to do with injuries, and then what we're going to do with the draft.
Yeah. Yeah. Now we'll see how new GM Monty Austin-Fort, who was the most aggressive rookie GM that I've ever seen in the first round of an NFL draft this year. Him and new head coach Jonathan Gannon, like I mentioned, we'll see how they do. We're going to move on to the schedule, though. So the Cardinals are interesting. Week 1 at Washington. That is a Colt McCoy, projected Colt McCoy, Sam Howell matchup. That's a good one. Can we end this game at a 0-0 tie? That is what I want to know. But I think they're going to lose that. I just think Washington has too many weapons that the Cardinals defense won't be able to defend.
I agree with that, and I hate to say it because I love rookie coaches, and I think everybody has a chance. It's also hard to go into an established coach who knows that, hey, we're about the same playing level. Think about it. Quarterbacks, same, X, Y, and Z. I agree with you wholeheartedly that the Commanders, I almost said the Redskins, are going to win that.
Well, and also I don't think the Cardinals aren't going to be able to block those guys on the Washington defense. I mean, come on. So, yeah, that's a loss. It's not looking good. So I already did the first 5 games. It's 0-5. They start out rough. Like it's brutal. They start 3 NFC East games the first 3 weeks. They're at the Commanders, like I said, home against the Giants, home against the Cowboys. All losses. Then they go to San Francisco. What a reprieve. To San Francisco. And then they come back home. We're not feeling great at 0-4. Oh, but it's okay because we get the Bengals at home.
No way. Nope.
And then we're at the Rams. We get back-to-back away games against the division, though. It's at the Rams, at the Seahawks. Look, I mean, I don't want to put 0-17, but this schedule is ridiculous for a 4th-place team. I'm going to go losses, loss. They're going to go first 9 weeks all losses. Realistic. I mean, after week 7 at the Seahawks, they're home against the Ravens. And then they go to Cleveland. So I don't see a win there, even if Kyler comes back.
The only games that I would circle, and I'm with you on, I'm saying 0-9 to start, is maybe the Giants come and turn it over a bunch, or maybe Deshaun Watson, he's back, he's healthy, he has, a great game, and that would be a loss, but maybe he doesn't. Maybe we don't see the same Deshaun Watson that we saw with the Texans because of everything that's going on, the weight of the contract that he got. But I don't see a win at all.
I think there are only 3 opportunities in those first 9 games are week 1 at the Commanders, week 6 at the Rams. That's like if Kyler comes back. I don't know when he's projected to come back yet. If they have Kyler against the Rams, they could win that one maybe. And then, like you said, at the Browns, again, if Kyler is back, they'll have a better shot. Now, week 10, they're home against the Falcons.
Ooh.
I'm going to give them a win.
At home.
I'm actually going to give them 2 wins. I'm going to give them 2 wins in a row. Home against the Falcons, at the Texans.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in my opinion, the Texans and Cardinals, and they traded players are going to be bottom feeders.
Again, like both of those could be losses, though. Just like I wouldn't be surprised if the Cardinals lose both. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna give them 3 straight wins. Look at that. They're home against the Rams in Week 12. Kyler definitely should be back by then. So I like them splitting with the Rams. I think the Rams are actually going to split all 3, which we'll get to whenever we go there. I haven't been correlating these wins, though, these wins and losses, because actually, yeah, I did, because the Seahawks I have sweeping the Cardinals. So actually, I think the Rams are the only division win they're going to get. At the Steelers, though, that's a loss. It's so bad for this team. A Week 14 bye is just terrible for having this.
Oh, that's too late for a team like this.
And then they're going to lose at home against the 49ers. I think Kyler Murray can beat the Bears in Chicago. And then they lose in Philly. They lose at home against the Seahawks. So
the best case scenario is 2 wins, in my opinion.
I was nice, and I gave them 4. 4-13. What I have the Arizona Cardinals.
There better be some injuries on that schedule.
Well, when Kyler comes back, it'll give him a lot better shot at a lot of those games second half of the season. So, anyways. Fantasy-wise, here we go. Talking about Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, Colt McCoy. I have both listed because if you draft Kyler, like you have to put him on your IR, obviously. So you're wasting a draft pick. And I just don't know how high he's going to go. I have no clue.
Well, who's he going to throw to?
Marquise Brown.
That's one person.
And Zach Ertz, which we'll talk about them. We'll talk about Rondale Moore as well. But, yeah. So, Kyler, I have no clue where he's going to get drafted. I'm not drafting him because I'm not doing the whole – I've been there. I've done the whole draft for the IR guy and play him, hope he gives your team a boost in the second half of the season when you're already have a losing record and you're trying to fight for the last scraps of the playoff seeds.
And it didn't work out.
No, it doesn't. It never does. So if you draft the quarterback, though, if you already have a guy, okay, that's a different story. But if you're drafting Kyler to be your number 1 and then you got to go draft another guy to be your starter until Kyler comes back, that's not going to work. Colt McCoy, though. Colt McCoy is an interesting situation. Not going to be drafted, I don't think, anyways. But I do think he is maybe a streaming option. It's not he's bad. It's not a very good streaming option, but possibly. I don't know. Just don't draft any Cardinals.
I'm with you.
Running backs, James Conner, Keontae Ingram. Keontae Ingram, I loved him coming out of USC last year. Didn't get a lot of run because they had Darrell Williams as the backup to James Conner, but now Ingram is the main backup. So I really love him late in redraft leagues because we know James Conner, unfortunately, has a history of getting hurt. So Ingram would be a good play late in the redraft leagues. James Conner, though, going to be an RB2 flex play-ish area for me, low RB2 because of what the offense is going to look like. And like I said, I think he's going to be a consistent flex play, though.
If he gets into the red zone, I do think James Conner will score touchdowns. I don't see him as a big yardage guy.
Yeah. Marquise Brown, Rondale Moore, those are the wide receivers. Those are the top 2 guys that McCoy/Murray had to throw to. Marquise Brown, I love Marquise Brown. He's been a good wideout for me in fantasy the last couple of seasons, whether that was in Baltimore or in Arizona.
When when saying who he's going to throw to, obviously I knew he was going to throw to him. It's just, I don't think there's any, when you're looking at one team, I don't think there's any pressure release when you have a really good wide receiver, the way that Arizona doesn't have a distinguished number two. And we can talk about Zach Ertz later, but there's going to be a lot of guys that have to step up. And maybe those are the guys that people try to trade for in the middle of the season and pick up.
Yeah, I like Marquise Brown as a high-end wide receiver too. Really solid option there. Rondale Moore, though, is more along the lines of a flex play for me. He has not been consistent in his couple years in the league, has to prove that he can be the wide receiver too for this team. And if he does, then he moves into starting territory as a wide receiver 3, possibly. Tight ends are Zach Ertz, and I put Trey McBride on there as well because I think they're going to use – you're going to see more of a 2 tight end sets than you have with the Cardinals ever, I think. But, yeah, Zach Ertz hasn't really been himself, got hurt last year. The Cardinals have not used the tight end, but I think they will now with the new offensive coordinator, new system. I think Zach Ertz will do a lot more and look more like himself, historic self, than he did last year in Arizona. So with the new offense, I think that Zach Ertz should be a good option. He's not a tight end 1 anymore like he used to be in Philadelphia, but he is a good backup and should be a solid. Trey McBride. Trey McBride is a good, really solid, I think, dynasty option. And, I think we'll see. We'll see what he does this year. I wouldn't draft him in redraft, but dynasty, definitely a good option to have on your bench. I think I do in at least one of my dynasty leagues. I had to check. I'm not sure. But good option in dynasty for the future of this Cardinals team. And I loved him at Colorado State, former Mackey Award winner. Should be a solid dynasty play. Matt Prater, the kicker, we mentioned him. Usually I would love him, and I will love him late in the season when Kyler is back and this offense is better, I think. No offense, Colt McCoy. But Matt Prater should be a consistent option again. Not going to be a top 5 kicker like normal, I think, but a top 10 kicker nonetheless. Startable in my mind as one of the most accurate kickers. And just like Jason Myers has, if not the biggest, one of the biggest legs in the league. And then the Cardinals defense is atrocious. Don't draft them. Don't keep them on your roster as a backup. Don't stream them. They are just so bad. They lost way too much, did not replenish enough. So Cardinals defense is a bottom feeder. Do not touch them at all in fantasy. And then there's only one rookie to talk about. They really didn't do a lot, and there's not going to be a lot of rookie contributors on this offense. So Michael Wilson, the Stanford wide receiver, is really the only guy to talk about. Now, they re-signed Greg Dortch to be the wide receiver 3, but I think Michael Wilson could be a very intriguing option. 6'2", 209. He's really the only receiver with jump ball ability that they have, because you look at Marquise Brown, 5'9", 170. Rondale Moore is even smaller, 5'7", 180. And then Greg Dortch is also small, 5'7", 175. So you get Wilson with that 6'2", 200-pound frame. Zach Pascal has that as well. But I love Michael Wilson to be able to contribute a lot, get him in those red zone opportunities. Fantastic. I think he's a really underrated guy no one's really talking about in dynasty leagues. So if you have a rookie draft and you're looking at a wide receiver with a lot of potential, Michael Wilson could be your guy as the probably top option to take those big wide receiver outside X type of snaps that DeAndre Hopkins used to take, because without him, they lost a lot of their size, like I said. So we're going to move on to the LA Rams. Mark's LA Rams here. Starting off, so re-signings and free agent acquisitions. This is really funny. This is going to be the least re-signings and free agent signings that you'll see of all of our divisions. The Rams had like negative $50 million this year to use. So there were not many key acquisitions. They re-signed one guy of note, center Brian Allen. He's your only guy there. And then free agent and trade acquisitions, they signed quarterback Brett Rippon to be the main backup to Matthew Stafford. And they traded for tight end Hunter Long in the Jalen Ramsey trade. So those were the two guys that they got new. So, yeah, it was not very active this offseason for LA, to say the least. Losses, though, quarterback Baker Mayfield, John Walford, and Bryce Perkins as a free agent. Running back Malcolm Brown, wide receiver Allen Robinson, they traded to Pittsburgh. Offensive tackle Ty Nsekhe as a free agent. Guard David Andrews. Defensive tackles Ashawn Robinson and Greg Gaines. Edge rusher Leonard Floyd. Linebacker Bobby Wagner. Corner Jalen Ramsey, they traded to Miami. Corner Troy Hill is a free agent. They also lost safeties Taylor Rapp and Nick Scott, and kicker Matt Gay and punter Riley Dixon. So, massive amount of talent lost off this team from last year. Robinson at wide receiver, I don't think they're going to miss. He didn't have that great of a time in LA. The defensive lineman, I think they will miss, though, a lot. Greg Gaines was a space eater inside, as was Ashawn Robinson. And then Leonard Floyd had a fantastic 9-sack season last year for LA. And they kind of really haven't replaced him. The corners as well, Ramsey and Hill. It's tough sledding at that corner spot in the secondary for LA. And the safeties, Taylor Rapp and Nick Scott, I mean, all the defensive losses were massive in my mind. And then the special teams turnovers as well. We'll talk about the kicker in fantasy. But Matt Gay, Riley Dixon, two very good kickers there to lose in free agency. They just couldn't afford them. So that's what you get when you pay a couple of guys. Let's look at the Rams' schedule, though. Week 1 at the Seahawks. Again, I think I have the Rams splitting with all three here. The Seahawks, they lose week 1, but they win in week 11. And I will have them winning in San Fran week 18, losing week 2 against them at home. And the Cardinals, I had the Cardinals beating the Rams week 12, but losing to the Rams week 6. So, yes, let's split all 3 divisional matchups. So 3-3 in division. That's a decent start for LA. I think I'd take a 3-3 start, but we'll see. They start 0-2, 0-3 actually right now because, like I mentioned, at Seattle week 1, home against the 49ers week 2, and then at the Bengals on Monday Night Football week 3, all 3 losses. I don't think there's any discussion to be had there. Week 4, though, they go to Indianapolis. I think they can beat the Colts. 5 home against the Eagles. Jonathan Gannon not going to have – or not Jonathan Gannon. I shouldn't say that. But they're not good enough to beat Philly. I don't think they're good enough to beat the Steelers either. Week 7, they're both at home. Week 8 at the Cowboys, I think that is a loss. Week 9 at the Packers, I think they can get that one, though. That one's a close game, but I think they can win that one. Week 13, then they have bye week 10. Home against the Seahawks is a win. Week 11, they lose in Arizona. Week 12, home against the Browns. Week 13, Matthew Stafford, they eke that one out. They lose in Baltimore. Week 14. Week 15 is home against the Commanders. I think they'll be good enough at that point to win that one. Week 16, home against the Saints. That's Thursday Night Football. Might get flexed out depending on how the teams are doing there. I think that's a loss, though. I like the Saints this year, even at 9-8, which is what I have them winning. And then I think at the Giants, week 17 is also a loss, and week 18 is at the 49ers. That is a win because I don't think the Niners will be playing for much, but we'll have to see how their record shakes out. I think it's actually decent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-10. I don't think that's terrible for the Rams this year.
Having a quarterback question mark, just healthy wise and who you lost. And at one point, we didn't even know if Sean McVay was coming back. I'm not. If they get to 7 wins, Rusty, I'll probably give you a hug and come fly to Milwaukee. We'll watch some Bucks games. Drinks on me.
Yeah, I mean, the NFC West, it's really tough sledding with having to play the AFC North and the NFC East this year, 2 good divisions. So I think 7 and 10. And like I said, there are a couple games that could be flipped, though, unfortunately for LA. The Packers game in Green Bay, week 9. I have them winning that one. I could see a scenario where Jordan Love plays well and the Packers win.
Hey, you already know what I'm going to ask you. Forget wins and losses. Do we see Stetson Bennett in SoFi throwing a pass in a meaningful game this year?
I mean, if you're talking about me, preseason's always meaningful, Mark.
I had to ask it.
But he also has another hurdle to go over, and that is that he is not the backup right now.
He's not. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding about that.
Brett Rippon is your guy. But back to the schedule. There's 2 other games that I think could be possible flips. One is the Browns game in LA, week 13. I have them winning that one. We talked about Deshaun Watson before. If the Browns are a lot better this year, that could be a loss for the Rams. And then the Saints game I mentioned on Thursday Night Football, week 16 in LA, I had them losing that one. They could win that one. I could see a way that they win that one. So
I don't see them having a winning record in any shape or form, in my opinion.
Yeah, 7-10. That puts them in second place, though, right now in the division. Until we get to the Niners. But fantasy-wise, Matthew Stafford, what do you think about your quarterback this year?
I don't think that he's a 1 at all. If you have an established 1 quarterback and he's on the board and you're thinking, okay, he's coming back from being healthy, I might use him in these games, you take him. But I think this whole division, besides Geno, in my opinion, like, can anyone prove me wrong that you would take any of these quarterbacks number 1 besides Geno? And I still wouldn't take Geno number 1.
Right. Yeah, you're right. I think Stafford is I'm not going to say solid. I was originally going to say solid, but then I played myself off from that. He's a decent option at QB2 as a backup. Can probably help you win a game when your QB1 is on a bye. So it's not a bad option. Probably not one I'm looking at, but we'll see. technically not fantasy season yet, but as I told our guy Peter, he's like, "You're doing best ball leagues already on DraftKings?" I was like, "Yeah." It's like it's always time for fantasy. Why not?
I like it.
All right, the running backs: Cam Akers, Kyron Williams. Now, I just got a trade offer for Kyron Williams earlier today. I declined it because I was like, I don't want Kyron Williams. I mean, it was with David Montgomery together, which I want David Montgomery, but I don't want Kyron Williams. So decline that trade. But anyways, Cam Akers, I like Cam Akers a lot. Nice running back 2 option. This offensive line has some stuff to prove, but I think they should run the ball more this year and kind of get back to what they did when Todd Gurley was there.
So bringing that up, I was thinking about, hey, how do you draft Matthew Stafford, X, Y, and Z? And in my opinion, another reason why you wouldn't draft him is I do think not Todd, but Sean McVay. Sorry, you said Todd Gurley. Got stuck in my mind. He's going to go back to that model of, hey, you got to beat us in the running game. It should open up the passing game. And not to get off the tracks, would you not host Dalvin Cook if you're this team? That's a different discussion, just a question. But I do think Cam Akers is a good draft. I don't know that you're going to pick him up with that first pick right away, but he should get a bunch of touches, in my opinion. If you're easing somebody back from injury or you're using a backup, you inevitably are going to give a lot of touches to your running back.
Yeah, I'm probably looking at Cam Akers, like I said, in the RB2 territory, but round-wise, in my mind, I have him somewhere in the 4th round area where the RB2s are going to go. So, early to mid 4th round is where I think he's probably going to go there. But yeah, Kyron Williams is a PPR guy. He was injured his rookie year, and last year it was okay, but I'm not really that big of a fan. I'm staying away from Kyron Williams. Someone's probably going to draft him thinking he's the next J.D. McKissick. I don't necessarily think he will be, though.
I don't think they'll even use him in that role, but that's just me.
Yeah. All right, wide receivers. Your guy, Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson. Now, Kupp's a stud, obviously. He's a wide receiver 1 all day. Top 5 wide receiver, top 3 maybe even. He doesn't have that much competition, so he'll beat double teams, triple teams, and he'll still get the ball. So not worried about it. First round, top half of the first round, actually. Probably wide receiver 2, I think, in the overall rankings, right behind Justin Jefferson.
I love your analogy. I love your thesis, whatever you want to call it. Only thing I have to say about that is when you talk about players being good or being draftable, one thing that I think that is forgotten about Cooper Kupp is how smart of a football player he is. You look at him and he looks bigger than me. He looks bigger than you. He came from Eastern Washington. Somebody that's gotten to this pinnacle, and he's not even at the pinnacle of his career, just as successful as he is, you have to be a smart football player. So even if you throw defenses at him or you double team him, he's going to find a way to get open. And that's why I think he's a really good draft. It doesn't matter if he has no one across the other field or he doesn't have a good tight end. He's going to get open because he's smart, athletic, and he's just good.
Yeah, and you mentioned the size. Deceivingly bit small. He's 6'2", 208. He's got fine size. But he plays the slot, so I think that kind of makes him look smaller. Van Jefferson, though. Van Jefferson's an interesting situation. I like him as a wide receiver 3 base with wide receiver 2 upside, depending on, like we talked about, how much they're going to do run pass-wise this year. But there are targets to be had. So, and there's, like I mentioned with Kupp, there aren't a lot of other guys to take the targets that Kupp won't get. So Van Jefferson's going to have an opportunity, and I think he'll seize that, like I said, somewhere in the wide receiver 3. 2 upside wide receiver 2 area. Goodbye, Mark. You didn't even say bye. But tight end Tyler Higbee is someone who's soured for me, anyways. Last year I relied on him a lot, and I think he's a serviceable tight end 2 with tight end 1 upside. If he has Matthew Stafford the whole season, definitely going to be a tight end 1, low end tight end 1, I should say. So draftable. I wouldn't be comfortable drafting him as my starting tight end because of the uncertainty, injury history of Matthew Stafford. But definitely high end tight end 2 with flex ability. So good option there at a shallow position, as it usually is every year. Kicker. This is as bad as which team was the Colts, I think. Yeah, I think it was the Colts that had like 0 kickers. Tanner Brown and Christopher Dunn are the 2 kickers listed on the Los Angeles Rams depth chart. And once again, I have no clue who these kids are. Tanner Brown, rookie, Oklahoma State. All right, sure. Christopher Dunn, rookie, NC State. Okay, Chris Dunn won the Groza Award in 2022. So there you go. That's probably your guy. Tanner Brown's listed as the kicker right now, the starter. But no, you're not drafting either of these guys. It's uncertainty at not even close to the very least. So yeah, definitely not drafting either kicker for the Rams right now unless they sign someone different. Neither am I drafting the Rams defense. Again, too many question marks. Aaron Donald is going to be Aaron Donald. But where is their pass rush? They're relying on rookie Byron Young and Nick Hampton, Ochuan Mathis. They also drafted. But Michael Holt is the other outside linebacker right now. Their other guys outside of Aaron Donald are Bobby Brown at nose and Kobe Turner at the other defensive end spot, who is also a rookie. And the secondary is suspect. So, yeah, not even close. Just like the Cardinals, I think the Rams defense, unless Raheem Morris gets these guys up to play, that's why he's on there, because he is the key to this Rams season. How that defense plays will be a big determination on whether they are successful or not this year. 2 rookies to talk about. One more prevalent is the first one, Zach Evans, running back out of Ole Miss. Now, we talked about Akers and Kyron Williams, but I think Zach Evans is a great option in Dynasty to think about, because Mark and I both said we don't really like Kyron Williams, and Cam Akers has been dinged up throughout his career, and Zach Evans is a power rusher there. Not really a receiver, which is why they have Kyron Williams. But goal line, I think you could see Zach Evans score a couple touchdowns this year as a rookie. I really like him in Dynasty. Just a flyer, just a dart throw there. But, yeah, why not? I think he could be a good option in this Rams offense if there's an injury to Cam Akers. And then the other guy maybe I shouldn't have put him on here because he's listed as wide receiver 6 right now. But Puka Nacua out of BYU. Look, they have other guys. They drafted Tutu Atwell a couple years ago in the second round. Hasn't really worked. They drafted Ben Skoranek in the 7th round a couple years ago. Is listed as the 3rd wide receiver right now. They just signed DeMarcus Robinson, and they have Kupp and Jefferson, like we mentioned. But Puka Nacua, I really loved at BYU. Not draftable in Dynasty, but right now anyways. But why not? Give him a chance, McVay, and see what he can do. I think he could take on a wide receiver 4 or 5 role this year and maybe blossom into something good in 24, 25, and beyond. Okay, that is the LA Rams. Let's go to the last team here, the San Francisco 49ers. Re-signings, wide receiver Jawan Jennings, tight end Ross Dwelly, offensive tackle Colton McKivitz, center Jake Brendel, defensive tackle T.Y. McGill, edge rusher Kerry Hyder, safety Tashawn Gibson, and long snapper Tabor Pepper. Highest paid long snapper in the league, I believe, Tabor Pepper. Free agent signings, quarterbacks Sam Darnold and Brandon Allen, wide receiver Chris Conley, offensive tackle Matt Pryor, guard John Feliciano, defensive tackle Javon Hargrave, edge rusher Clellan Ferrell, kicker Isaiah Oliver, and they traded for corner Isaiah Oliver, and then kicker Zane Gonzalez, they traded for him from Carolina. The re-signings, I didn't think were very big. Tabor Pepper, big signing, though. Big re-signing. Jawan Jennings, though, actually might have been a big re-signing because their wide receiver depth is it's kind of iffy to say, but it's all right. I think they're okay there. Colton McKivitz actually was a massive re-signing, though, with them needing a right tackle. Mike McGlinchey going to Denver, so they needed a right tackle. Good re-signing there by John Lynch. Free agent acquisition, Sam Darnold was the puzzling one because of having Lance and Purdy, especially since they haven't traded Trey Lance yet, I should say. They still could. But the two other big ones I thought they got were John Feliciano from Buffalo. I think that was a great get in the middle of their line. He's listed as a backup center. I'm not sure why he's not starting as the right guard for Spencer Burford right now, but anyways, can play all 3 positions inside. And then, of course, Javon Hargrave was the jewel of their free agency class. To pair him with Eric Armstead inside is just ridiculous. And they still have Javon Kinlaw as well. So, yeah, D tackles are stacked in San Fran. Losses, quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo, offensive tackle Mike McGlinchey, like I mentioned, guard Daniel Brunskill, defensive tackle Hassan Ridgway and Maurice Hurst, edge rushers Samson Abukum, Jordan Willis, and Charles Amenahu, linebacker Aziz Al-Shair, corner Emmanuel Mosley, corners Jason Verrett and Dante Johnson are both free agents, safety Jimmy Ward, and kicker Robbie Gould is a free agent still. Think they're going to miss Robbie Gould, but they got Zane Gonzalez, drafted Jake Moody as well, so I think that's okay situation there, going cheaper and younger. Emmanuel Mosley is a big loss, as is McGlinchey, like I mentioned. The edge rushers I don't have an issue with, other than it hurts their depth because they lost 3 of them, and all 3 were having pretty good careers in San Francisco. The Al-Shair thing, I think they're okay at linebacker, but we shall see. And the corners, they have good ones there still, so I'm not worried about that. Schedule. Let's get into this here for San Francisco. Week 1 at the Steelers. I'm going to put that as a loss. It's a homer pick. I just don't know how Lance and or Purdy are going to be week 1. So in Pittsburgh, I think that's a tough game to play. Loss there. Week 2 in LA, that is a win. Week 3 at home against the Giants. That is a win. That's Thursday Night Football. They beat the Cardinals week 4. Just got to get the correct. I think I have them beating everyone, splitting with the Rams and the Seahawks. 3 and 2 or 4 and 2. 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 3 and 2 I just don't remember which Seahawks game. I think I had them losing the home game against Seattle, and then they lose week 18 at home against the Rams as well. But back to the other games. So week 5, they're at home against the Cowboys, Sunday Night Football. I'm going to give them a loss. That's a surprising loss probably, but going to give them a loss. They win in Cleveland week 6. They win at Minnesota on Monday Night Football week 7. They lose at home against the Bengals week 8. So 5-3, not bad going into the bye. Week 9, week 10 at the Jags. I like the Jags this year, so I think that's a loss in Jacksonville. They win against the Bucs at home. They win in Seattle on Thursday Night Football, week 12. They lose in Philly, week 13. Lose home against the Seahawks, week 14. They win at home at the Cardinals, week 15. They win at home against the Ravens, Monday Night Football, week 16. They win at the Commanders, week 18, and then week 17, and then week 18 at home against the Rams. They lose. So 10-7 does not win the San Francisco 49ers the division. It is second place for them. Still a wild card team there. Bunch of these games could flip. Week 1 at the Steelers could definitely flip, as could the Cowboys game in San Francisco on Sunday Night Football. They could beat the Jags in Jacksonville. And then, of course, week 18 against the Rams could be in play. That could be a win. If that is a win, then I'd have to go back to the division, which I think is both 4-2, because I think I have the Seahawks splitting with the Rams and the 49ers, just like I have the 49ers splitting with the Rams and Seahawks. So, yeah. Well, actually, no, that would put the 49ers at 5-1, and that would be a win, because their only loss would be to the Seahawks. That would be a divisional win for the 49ers if they beat the Rams week 18. But I'm going to leave it at 10-7 right now. I'm going to leave them in second place. Just to let you know what Logan had for his divisional breakdowns. So he had the 49ers winning at 11-6, 5-1 in the division, 11-6 for the Seahawks, 4-2, 8-9 for the Rams. So Mark's gonna like that one even better, and 1-16 for the Cardinals. Man, Logan was harsh on Arizona this year. So, dang, that's rough. But yeah, that's how Logan sees it. Let's go into fantasy here. Quarterback is the iffy situation. Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, which ones it's going to be. Everyone thinks it's Brock Purdy, as do I think anyways. Will he be okay with his elbow? Who knows? But, you know, I think he played well last year, and we'll see if he hits the sophomore slump. That's the biggest issue that Purdy might have other than his elbow. I'm not touching either quarterback. Definitely Purdy is the guy you're going to draft if you do draft him, but I don't like either. There's too much uncertainty at the position for me to take either of those guys. Someone's probably going to draft Purdy. I wouldn't be surprised, but not for me. Christian McCaffrey, running back, like we said on Tuesday, depending on where you look, he could be the guy. He could be the number 1 overall pick this year. Justin Jefferson isn't also in the mix. But I think CMC is going to be fantastic. Probably at the worst top 5 pick. Had a great year last year with San Fran. Now in a full season, I think he's going to be even better. So, yes, Christian McCaffrey, top 5, top 3 pick, and RB1 all the way. Wide receivers, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. I like Deebo. I don't really like Deebo, but in fantasy, he's a good option. And Purdy seemed to like him last year. So, yeah, Deebo is a low-end wide receiver 1 for me. He does a lot of stuff in this offense, running the ball and receiving. So, low-end wide receiver 1. I don't think he's a star, though, in my mind. Like the guys at the top, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, etc. Brandon Ayuk, though, is serviceable flex wide receiver 3 option, depending on how much they run the ball. That's the biggest thing with the wide receivers in this offense is how much do they give the ball to Christian McCaffrey? How much does he catch it out of the backfield? That takes away from the wide receiver work. So Brandon Ayuk is, like I said, flex wide receiver 3, later round pick for me. Someone's probably going to pick him way before me, though. So tight end George Kittle. I love George Kittle, and Brock Purdy does too, because George Kittle scored, I think it was 5 touchdowns in the last 3 games, or no, something like that. I don't remember. But anyways, he scored a lot of touchdowns in a short amount of time with Brock Purdy at quarterback. So Kittle, while he needs to stay healthy, unlike he did last year, is still a top 3 fantasy tight end, along with Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce. So, yes, give me George Kittle. I'm drafting him all day, early, 3rd, 4th round. 49ers defense, definitely take them. They're still good, y'all, and they're still going to be a top 10 defense. So, definitely starting ability. You look at, they still have Nick Bosa. They added Javon Hargrave to go with Eric Armstead. They replenished the edge depth. Drake Jackson's going to slide into a starting role as a 2nd-round pick last year. Didn't play too much, so he's going to be a starter this year, though. They retained Kerry Hyder, signed Clelin Ferrell. That's going to be their 4 edge rushers. And the linebackers, like I said, Greenlaw and Warner are still studs. They drafted Robert Beal and Curtis Robinson is a 2nd-year guy, actually. My bad. I thought he was a rookie. My bad, Curtis. But they drafted Robert Beal, and D. Winters, and Jalen Graham. They drafted all 3 of those guys. And hopefully one of those guys takes the strong side linebacker role, because I'm not a big fan of Oren Burks, but he's a decent player there. And if they run nickel dime most of the game, they'll be fine without him on the field. And the secondary is still good. Travarius Ward, Diamador Lenore, Sam Womack, and Isaiah Oliver, your top 4 corners. Ambry Thomas there as well. And then Talanoa Hufanga, Tashawn Gibson, Jair Brown, their top pick in the 3rd round there. And George Odom, your 4 safeties. This defense is still loaded, people. Top 10, top 5 even, maybe. Just got to work out the kinks in the pass rush depth there. Get some help for Nick Bosa, which Javon Hargrave should help out with. And they'll be great. They'll be a starting caliber every week for you. Rookie-wise, there wasn't many to pick from on offense. But I went with tight end Cameron Latu as my first one. Who knows how much he's going to get this year, but Kittle's not going to play forever. So I think Latu is an interesting play in Dynasty to pick him up. If you're a Kittle owner, you might think about drafting him this year, maybe picking him up free agency if no one drafts him. But the better guy is kicker Jake Moody. Now, this team could have a really good offense, and not sure if Moody's going to win the job over Zane Gonzalez, but Moody has the pedigree, 3rd-round pick this year. So I like Jake Moody don't draft him in Dynasty, but redraft leagues, he's definitely a guy that people probably aren't thinking about as a rookie kicker. So I really like Jake Moody. Take him if you want a solid option at the kicking position. And that's it for the show today. Thank you all for watching. Next week, we'll be back talking USFL Week 10, USFL game previews. We'll also have all your NCAA and NFL news. And we'll continue the season preview series with the NFC East. We're doing the AFC West on Tuesday. Don't forget to follow us on all our social media at FAA Podcast on Instagram and Twitter, FAA_bets on Twitter as well. FAApodcast.com is our website. You can check us out here on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Twitter, and also our new TikTok account, which I'm getting more ingrained in. Football Addicts Anon is our account on there. Again, thank you all for watching. Thank you, Mark, for being on, and we'll see y'all on Tuesday.